Alright, welcome to my new faction focus series for the Igni Ferroque mod. I'm going to cover a different faction in each episode, and I'm going to go over the strengths, weaknesses, and each unit the faction can bring. And first up is England. So this is the basics of the strengths and weaknesses. So you can see it boasts superb long movement and a large variety of infantry. But the weaknesses is it fields no ranged cavalry, crossbows, or phalanx units. So that's the basics of the strengths and weaknesses. Obviously it's a bit more in-depth than that. It's got the standard Northern European peasants, town militia, levy spearmen, spear militia. So this is pretty standard for a Northern European Western faction. So the peasants are a good meat shield unit. There's 180 in a unit, but they do have quite low morale and bad stats. So really just use them for intercepting enemy charges, like cushioning for your elite units, and absorbing arrows. Town militia, they're just really cheap infantry. They have a very slight bonus against cavalry, but other than that they're quite bad. Spear militia here, they are cheap spearmen. They are specifically designed to counter cavalry, although they are quite cheap, so they might still get beaten by heavy cavalry. They do have quite a sizable bonus against cavalry, so that 4 attack there will be quite a lot higher against cavalry. Just bear in mind they won't be able to kill infantry hardly as well. Levy spearmen are a half-size unit of spear militia, which is unique to England. These are good for small battles and guerrilla warfare. In sieges, you can use a small unit to activate a tower, or you could maybe hide a small unit in the forest and use it to outflank, and it's not got hardly any cost tied in it, so it's cheaper than a peasant unit. Quite a good throw-over unit as well. Next we have armoured sergeants. These are just a heavy spearmen. Very good against cavalry. If you see, compare it to dismounted feudal knights, it costs 30 points less, and it has the same defense, but less than half the attack. So you can use it as a defensive infantry as well. Just bear in mind that it will get directly countered by dismounted feudal knights and other heavy sword units, but it can still hold for a very long time, especially in Skiltron formation. Let me go on to the Billman here, the 120 unit. It's a light offensive infantry, so it's got a decent charge, it's got high attack but very low defense. These are very good for outflanking, helping cavalry fights, stuff like that. The Bill militia are a half-size unit of that, so these guys you want to use them for a charge to lead in front of your army, because if you have a unit of 120, if you use them for a charge, then the chances are only like half, maybe less, like a third of the unit are actually going to get that charge at the front. The rest will just be behind. Whereas if you have a unit of 60, all of them are going to get that charge, so you're going to get the maximum effectiveness from the amount of men you bring, which is good in low point battles. Bill hooks actually do have a slight bonus against cavalry, and they're effective against armor, so they are quite damaging if you can get good charges with them and good situations, so don't let them get outflanked and do the outflanking. Heavy billmen are a heavier version of the billman, you can tell by the name, and they are basically the same except they are more versatile, so they can take a lot more damage. They're still quite countered by range though, because they don't have a shield, and a lot of that defense is in melee skill, so crossbows will make short work of these guys. The heavy bill militia are similar to the Bill militia but heavier, so again they're just given a charge. There's half the unit, so they are more manoeuvrable, and in low fun battles they can be very useful. Bear in mind the stats are very slightly worse, and maybe the morale too, but it's only 16 units, so they are definitely a supporting role, whereas these you might be able to use them as a frontline infantry. Dismounted English knights now. These are half-size unit again, but they are very tough and very powerful. They are meant for shock infantry. You can use them to lead your lines or on the flanks. They're still quite good against cavalry because of their huge attack. Just probably don't let them get charged, because it will wipe out maybe the whole unit if it's a very heavy shock cavalry. These guys are best used against elites. So if you see an enemy has elites, if you can tie them down with maybe like an armoured sergeant and then charge them in the rear with dismounted English knights, you'll do huge damage. General's bodyguard dismounted. These guys are meant to tank damage. They won't deal out much, but they will survive a long time protecting a general. which is kind of what you want from a general's bodyguard. Dismounted feudal knights are the standard for infantry, heavy infantry, and they are very cost effective. They are just generally good. They are countered by anything that's good against armor, and yeah, that's pretty much it. These are probably what most Western factions will have as their infantry corps. Armoured swordsmen are, you can see they have less attack than dismounted feudal knights, but a lot more defense and 2 hit points. But they do cost a lot more. These are meant for holding a line, defending a point. They can absorb a lot of damage but won't deal out much. So if you can use a defensive unit like this to absorb damage, and a damage dealing unit like dismounted English knights or cavalry or archers to deal the damage, that's a very good combo for England. Bear in mind these can get countered by anti-armor troops and also cavalry or heavy cavalry, shock cavalry. So you want to kind of keep them protected. It might seem counterintuitive to keep a protecting unit protected, but if you just keep spearmen or even stakes around, then that's protected from cavalry, and if you can counter shoot their archers, then that's protected from archers. It's not too hard to do. Archer militia and peasant archers. In vanilla they are identical, and in this they are actually quite different. So you can see by the number in the unit, peasant archers are 150, archer militia have 120. So peasant archers, they can therefore deal more damage because there's more in the unit. But as you can see by their stats, they are slightly worse, and they also have a lot less morale. You can see bows have range 130, which is better than this is the low tier bow, which is better than the low tier crossbow. So I've made it so bows will always outrange crossbows of the same tier. Yeah, so when you want to bring archer militia is when you think your archers might get caught. Archer militia are a lot more versatile than peasant archers, because once peasant archers get caught or get shot at heavily, then that's the unit gone because they were out. Whereas archer militia will stay alive quite a lot longer. Sherwood archers are a specialised ambush unit. They have one of the highest ranges in the game for a bow unit, and they're generally quite good. If you can sneak them into some woods and keep them there until maybe late game, or you could just rain fire into the enemy's back, that's always good. If used well, they can get a lot of kills. Just maybe don't let them get shot back, because they have hardly any defense against missiles, and also they're quite weak to cavalry charges. Longbowmen are the cheapest longbowmen that England can get, not included Sherwood archers. They have quite good range, alright attack, but the point is their shots are armor piercing, and also they can use sharpened stakes. The yeomans are an upgrade from longbowmen. They are better at range, higher damage, longer range, and also they're quite good in melee because they have armor piercing melee weapons. So these guys can actually be damage dealers in melee after they've done with their arrows. So they're actually very versatile. Also, they might actually be able to kill some light cavalry that catches them, if the light cavalry is bad enough. Retinue longbowmen are the next upgrade from yeomans. You can see the price cost goes up by about 300 each time. Yeah, they have one of the highest ranges, and they have quite good attack, or very good attack actually, and they have effective against armor missiles, as all longbowmen do. They have sharpened stakes as well, which is, England needs sharpened stakes because they didn't have any phalanx units like pikes or halberds. So if they didn't have stakes, they would be very vulnerable to cavalry charges. Whereas with stakes, you can effectively section off areas where you want to be protected from cavalry. The downside is you can't pick up and move stakes, so you've got to make sure once you place them you're happy with where you are, and it can limit your mobility, because if you need to move forwards, then you leave the stakes behind, your archers are now vulnerable again. Retinue longbowmen, if you compare their melee stats to dismounted feudal knights, they have 1 higher attack, 1 less defense, so they are still formidable in melee once they've used up their arrows. Although, if you maybe fire a couple of volleys and then get them in melee, they will not be cost effective at all. It'll be kind of a waste, to be honest. Arquebusiers, they fire shotgun-like damage, so they're good against lots of massed cheap infantry. So it's like spear militia or Aztecs or anything like that. Anything with low armor they're good against. because the shots hit multiple people. Once they get caught though, they're goners, and they've got quite short range, so you have to use them wisely. Musketeers are very long range and they're very high damage. They can snipe elite units very well. Bear in mind they do have to have line of sight, and you can't have them really behind your line unless you have a hill, so they are quite hard to use effectively. And they're very good on the flanks, I've found, if you can protect them well, because they can snipe enemy cavalry, maybe put a couple of volleys on them before your cavalry get to them, and weaken them a lot. Also they can snipe generals, which is very annoying. Hobilars are the light cavalry for England. They are very cheap and they are fast moving. They also have a spear, so they are quite good against cavalry, although their low defense means most things will kill them quite quick. So yeah, you can use them for outflanking, getting rear charges. You won't do much damage, but you will inflict the morale modifier to the enemy. Demi-lancers are dedicated shock cavalry for England. They are quite cheap and they have high charge, so on the charge they'll do a lot of damage. You want to use these against elite units, preferably elite archers or elite infantry, and not cavalry, because once you charge the cavalry, that's great, you'll do a lot of damage, but you will not really be able to get out of there, and you have 6 attack, 10 defense if you want to stay in extended combat, which is pretty shit. Mounted sword knights are the opposite. They want the drawn out melee fights. They don't have a lance, so they are terrible in the charge, but they have good attack, good defense, and they are cost effective in drawn out engagements. They have less potential damage than demi-lancers, because the demi-lancers can keep cycle charging and not losing many but dealing lots of damage, but once they're caught they're dead, whereas mounted sword knights, they're pretty consistent. They you don't have to micro them much, you can just leave them in the fight and they'll do fine. Those are probably best for chasing down units or fighting other enemy cavalry for England. Mailed knights are a mix of the two. They are not as good at charging as demi-lancers, but they're not as weak in extended melee. So they're a mix of the two, not as good as either, but they can do both roles sufficiently well. General's Bodyguard mounted. This is the cheaper version of the mounted General's Bodyguard. They are low damage but high defense, so they can keep your general alive. They're not necessarily intended for fighting in combat unless it's kind of a last resort, and there are only 20 men, so they can get surrounded quite easily, so you want to use the mobility to get them out of danger. But as a last resort they can be used for cycle charging. Feudal knights are the upgrade to mailed knights basically. They are quite good at charging and quite good at extended melee, and they're generally all-round good cavalry. English knights, these are the damage dealing, just generally all-round damage dealing cavalry for England. They are reasonably heavy, and also they have high damage to other cavalry and armor piercing melee weapons. So you want to use these to take care of other cavalry, elite stuff. Just make sure you don't run them into spear cavalry, otherwise it won't be cost effective for you. Knights Hospitaller and Knights Templar, they have a lot of cavalry in the unit, and they are very heavy. If you're in high funds battles and you've used up all of the slots, you could consider replacing some cavalry of these because of how many there are in the unit. You could maybe swamp the enemy cavalry. Yeah, but in low fund battles, if you get one of these, it's a huge cost to put your army through, and you may get ganged up on by multiple cavalry units. So you could have one cavalry unit holding yours and the other cycle charging, which will kill these quite quick. Kill anything quite quick. This is the late General's Bodyguard. This is even tougher than the standard General's Bodyguard, and it's got unbreakable morale. So these are the ultimate in defending your general. Again, you want to keep them safe though, because they can get overrun, because there's only 30 in the unit. Ballista is a cheaper siege weapon. There's 4 ballistas in a unit. It's got decent range. It's mainly used for dealing a bit of damage to the enemy, maybe making them come towards you because the 195 range. If you're able to hit them at 195 range and they can't hit you, then they have to come towards you, or they'll just stand there and get shot. So if you want to bait the enemy to come towards you, it's very useful, especially as England, when you want to use your stakes effectively. Bear in mind, if you run siege weapons over stakes, it will destroy them. So you want to be careful about that. Catapult is the next cheapest. It's generally the most cost-effective siege weapon because of its quite low cost and potential for damage. It's got very slightly higher range than the ballista. Still not great range, but it's definitely good. On flaming shot, this is amazing against infantry. You can deal a lot of damage. There's 3 catapults in the unit, and that's it's quite inaccurate, but you do get 3 per volley, so the chances are you'll hit something, especially if the infantry is all massed up. The Ribolt, this is a very quite hard to use siege weapon. It's got low range, it's 150 range, but the shots, it fires a round of a volley of shots, like I think it's 9 shots in a barrage, and it penetrates units. So if you use this against elite units, because it can wipe out like a whole unit in a volley, but bear in mind it's only got 10 men manning it, so if the enemy gets maybe a volley or 2 off from archers, it will wipe out the unit. So you have to be very careful when you use these, but they have a huge potential for damage. Mortars, they have a lot of ammo, but they're not too good against infantry. The main use of them is in drawn out sieges where you can constantly be bombarding the enemy's elite units. So over time these do a lot of damage, but they're not as spectacular as even say a catapult. The trebuchet, this only has 2 per unit, so you can see the pattern: ballistas 4, catapult 3, trebuchet 2. These each individual shot is more damaging than the catapult, but there's only 2 in the unit, so it may not have as high damage output as the catapult when they're both in range, whereas the trebuchet has a lot higher range than the catapult. It can also do the rotting cow carcass, which decreases enemy morale. The bombard is the most standard cannon. It's good against buildings. On flaming shot, it's good against infantry. It's a cost-effective cannon. The culverin, however, it's got a lot higher range than the bombard and a lot of other cannons. It's better against buildings, and the explosive shot is quite good against infantry, but not as good as the flaming shot. So you want to mainly use this in sieges, especially that with that range you can maybe even get multiple layers of walls destroyed. Sailors are a very cheap unit. There's only 20 in the unit, and they're not very good. They won't get many kills at all. The point of them is to activate towers and sieges in a defense if you're on low funds, or you can inflict the rear charge penalty to break a unit quickly if you can get them around the flanks. Clergymen, they are not very strong on their own, but they can inspire units around them, so they're entirely a support role. Pilgrims are a very good damage sponge. They cost more than the peasants, but there's more in a unit and they have better morale. Although they are a lot weaker and will not get hardly any kills. If they do get a kill, you'll be very lucky. The point is, they are very annoying to deal against because of their high morale, so you can tie down units for quite a while without dealing any damage, which is not cost effective for you, but if you can capitalize on it, say get another unit into the rear of them or shoot them, then it's worth it. Welsh Spearmen and Irish Kerns, these two are also ambush units, just like the Sherwood Archers. They are very good at hiding in forest, and they get bonus fighting in woods. So Spearmen can hold and kill cavalry, Javelinmen can deal damage, and the Sherwood Archers can deal damage. That's pretty much those 3 units' role. The Irish Kerns is actually quite cheap because there's only 60 in a unit, as you can see, but for javelins that's what you want. You want a low amount in unit for low cost. It's a low risk, high reward, because the javelins are very powerful in this mod, if you can get them in range. Also, every faction has a javelin unit because javelins are a counter to elephants. I didn't want every faction to be destroyed by elephants. Crusader Sergeants, Dismounted Crusader Knights, and Crusader Knights are all Crusader units, and they have 250 in the unit. So it's a huge amount, especially for cavalry, as you can see by their price. These are used in very high fun battles, or for maybe themed battles where you want to fight a Crusader army attacking like a Muslim faction or something. These won't be used very often because they're not entirely cost effective. As you can see, these Dismounted Crusader Knights have the same stats as Feudal Knights, but they have better morale. But say Dismounted Feudal Knight has its cost 570, is 120 in unit. if you times it by 2 to make it 240 in a unit, that's only 1,140, and these cost 1,750. So it's really not cost effective in low points, excluding the morale. Yeah, so high point battles, you want these, not much else really. And lastly, these free company longbowmen. These are just a half unit of longbowmen. That's pretty much it. So yeah, this is the England roster as of now. There's a few changes coming, but as everything should stay pretty much the same for now. I think I'm going to go into a battle next and show you that one. So I'm here with the battle replay with Anthony. I am playing as England and he's playing as Sicily.
Yep.
So this is the deployment, how we've deployed. I think we've both got quite defensive armies, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the English lean that way particularly because they can put down stakes.
Exactly. Let me just read off my England army list. So I have my dismounted general's bodyguard. I have 4 armoured swordsmen, which are very tanky defensive infantry. I have 2 dismounted English knights, which are shock infantry, 1 on each flank. And I have 1 armoured sergeant. So that's my cavalry defence, pretty much. I have 3 yeoman archers, and then 2 retinue longbowmen. I have 3 mounted sword knights, so I have 1 deployed in the middle and 1 on each flank, hidden in the forest right now. I also have 1 demi-lancer, which I'm kind of trying to keep alive until late game. And then deep in the forest, over to... where did I put it? I've lost sight of my... there it is, my flanking force. So my I alt-tab so my radar's weird, there we go. So in the forest I have Sherwood archers and Hobilars. That's my flanking force. And
Sherwood archers.
They did quite good this battle, didn't they?
Yeah, well, you managed to get them to, like, jump me when I had no idea they were there, so...
Yeah.
Got in behind and did what they were meant to do.
Spoilers.
Yes.
Anthony's army, he has a mounted general's bodyguard. He has 5 Pavese crossbows. These are expensive crossbows. They are very, very strong if you can get them shooting for a while. You have a peasant unit for a meat shield. That's something I lacked. I lacked a meat shield unit, so nice army pick there. You have 4 armoured sergeants, so that's a lot of cavalry defence, and you've put them on the flanks, so that's a good choice. You have 5 dismounted Norman knights.
Yep.
That's a solid infantry corps. They are on par with dismounted feudal knights.
Yep.
You have a mailed knight and a mounted sergeant on each flank. That's a very strong combination, because the mailed knight is very versatile and the mounted sergeants are very good against killing other cavalry. So,
Yep. Was basically what I was going for. I like my cavalry forces to be a mixture of an anti-cavalry unit and an anti-infantry, an anti-everything unit, so that the anti-cavalry can try and hold off the cavalry and the other one can go and do what it's meant to do against your infantry line.
It's a good combo.
Exactly. And also on the right-hand flank, you may have noticed that I peeled off some of my armoured sergeants to go and support my cavalry.
Ah, I see, yeah. Okay, so what's happened so far is this hill is blocking my catapult from firing. So I probably shouldn't have taken the catapult on this map, because especially with this terrain. And as I advance to the top, you push forward to stop me advancing, and you rush out of the forest with your flank on this side, with your cavalry force, and get right into my retinue longbowmen. Luckily you didn't get a good charge, so I still have a chance of holding. Here my catapult's firing now, not picking off like a couple units, a couple men. On the side you actually get the jump on me again with your cavalry. It's a good microing, but I'm reinforcing with my armoured sergeants, and you're bringing some quite far away.
Yeah.
Also,
on the left hand side I did a poor job of bringing up my armoured sergeants at the same time as my cavalry.
yeah, and right in the centre I've charged forward my mounted sword knights to silence your Pavese while I get some shots off. and you broke their charge. You didn't get to see it, but you broke their charge of your peasant unit. So you just saved yourself a bunch of damage there. Again, a few more kills with the catapult. Retinue longbowmen are actually very, they're decent in melee. They're on par with dismounted feudal knights as well. So because I reinforced, your cavalry routed, and my archers held. On the flank
I
here,
reinforced, your cavalry routed.
Yeah. on your left flank, you see you're reinforcing with your armoured sergeants into the back of mine.
Yep.
This is when I use my dismounted English knights to intercept.
Yeah. At which point I was screwed, and you also had your archers firing down on their backs, which is, even with shields, their backs aren't exactly covered. So
rear charge by shock infantry is going to do a lot of damage.
But while that was happening, I just everything.
I did a terrible job protecting my archers this game, because I was. I just we were having to micro across the whole battlefield. Like here, I sprung my trap. I've been killing a bunch of your armored sergeants there with my Sherwood archers.
Yep.
I was getting rear charges in the middle, and I finally pull my archers back. So this blob you've done in the center, if I'd got a good catapult hit, this would have killed so many.
But catapults are terribly inaccurate, and I was just pushing for those catapults. I also now had my crossbowmen pretty much free at the back of your cavalry, shooting at them. So that was, Yeah,
and I'm desperately sending my hobilars to silence your Pavis and everything. The last thing I want is this Pavis shooting my heavy infantry or my archers or anything really. And this blob you've done, I don't usually blob because it makes you quite vulnerable to archer fire, but you're pushing through my center very quickly. And you actually get my catapult and silence it just through the push alone.
Yeah, blobbing technically is always a bad idea. Whatever whatever else might be happening, blobbing is a bad idea. But there was enough going on enough going on everywhere else that it kind of didn't matter at this point.
Yeah, and the thing is, my archers weren't actually shooting at the blob. They were trying to return fire at
my Pavis and stuff like that, and I was trying to have my Pavis shoot everything.
Well, you just punched straight through the center of my army,
which can be a good thing in certain situations.
I'm in a very tough position here, but I have just won this flank. See, there's a ton of dead bodies around here. This is a hell of a fight. My dismounted English knights got racked up a ton of kills on your spearmen. And they are pushing at your Pavis right now.
Yep. And the right-hand side, which I never did anything particularly well with because they came in and slammed straight into your archers.
Exactly.
Means that your Sherwood archers at the back, which I finally noticed about this point, and your demi-lancers both get to hit me now.
So my demi-lancers that I'd saved to late game are now coming very handy. I get a double charge, one with hobilars which won't do much damage but it will hold for a bit, at least stop them firing, and then my demi-lancers get a bunch of kills in that charge. I should have cycled them out immediately because they're not very good at extended melee. But I just wanted your crossbows to stop shooting. Meanwhile, you've punched straight through the front of my line, and you're wrapping around into the side of my units. I'm doing my best to maneuver my archers, because I thought you were going to punch straight through and then charge me in the back with everything. And this one mounted sword knight is trying to hold up 4 units behind my lines. I don't know if you can see it there.
Yeah. The problem was that I punched through, yes, but I didn't have the units to move units through and hold your units there at the same time.
Yeah, oh god, here I've pulled on my mounted sword knights, and you've rear charged a bunch of my armoured swordsmen. So this is really bad for me right now, but I've pulled my archers around the sides, and now I'm going to get a bunch of flank shots, or rear shots into the blob.
Yep. No, you've definitely managed that quite well.
You're reinforcing with armoured sergeants with your Pavis, but I think it's maybe a bit too late.
Yes. when I charged everything into the middle, should have kept at least 1, maybe 2 units of armoured sergeants back, knowing that the amount of cavalry you had.
Yeah.
Just that I could. But your armoured sergeants work too, marching backwards and forwards across the battlefield.
Yeah. Armoured Sergeant's done a lot of running. Yeah, mine are very tired.
Yes. Shield trim for armoured sergeants is great if you can have them sitting somewhere for a prolonged period of time.
Yes.
So they're great with longbowmen, or if your opponent doesn't have catapults or something.
Yeah, if you outrange them, they're great. So
Yeah.
here the blob. I've got my dismounted English knights charging right into the rear of the blob. I think this might kill your general, actually. Yeah, I think this is when your general dies. This is what the shock infantry is intended for. There we go.
Good tidings.
Yep.
The enemy general lies dead. We've sent the base Kurd.
I think that's what won me the battle at this point, because they just caused a mass rout in the centre. Your Pavis are dead, and I think this is game at this point.
Pretty much.
It was very close up to a certain point, though.
Yeah. Losing both flanks is never a good idea. Even if you destroy the centre, if that doesn't rout them, then they just surround you.
Yeah.
So.
You did a great job putting me forward from my stakes and just reinforced like heavily defensible position.
Yes.
Just the patience alone is a good tactic.
Yeah. Patience has its place, but every so often you have to be aggressive. And I wasn't aggressive at the right times, or if I was, if I'd have found the demi-lancers and the Sherwood archers, that would have changed things. Having my spearmen in that melee on the other flank sooner, so that they weren't charged back quite so easily by your.
This is a clear victory.
I just killed my own general.
I
just.
Yes.
This is catapults. They can do more damage to you than the enemy. You gotta be careful when using them.
Yes.
Some poor generals just won this battle, and then in the last bit, routing the last unit, he gets killed.
Yep.
Right. So, you had quite a lot of defensive infantry. That your killing power was your crossbows and your cavalry, right?
Yep. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And the hope was that the cavalry could get behind you, but yeah.
In terms of individual units, this battle, what got most kills for me was my retinue longbowmen, 270 kills on one of them. The one you charged at the start, you made it only get 100 odd kills, so you did a good job silencing that.
Yeah, but only silencing 1 out of 4 is not a good. It's not good enough.
Yeah. Demi lancers that I kept to last, they got 160 kills. I did sword knights that I charged in the middle got 160, but a lot of them were peasants, so that's probably more like around 80, which is not very good. Catapult got 73 kills, but it also killed a bunch of my own and my general, so I will mention though, my Sherwood archers got 93 kills, and they only received 1 casualty. So I thought I used them quite well.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. It's having Sherwood archers hidden in the forest is just
the thing is, if
such a pain in the back. Because
so your internet messed up for
Hello?
a second there. You back?
yeah.
Alright. Yeah. And the thing is though, if they get return fire or charged by cavalry, that's basically the entire unit dead, because they have such low defense against that stuff. Let me quickly look at your kills. Okay, so your Pavis actually, one of your units actually got a lot of kills, 122. And
Yeah.
I didn't bring any meat shield units, like I really should have. So these are all important kills that your Pavis got. Your armoured sergeants didn't get hardly enough kills to make up for their price, but they did hold for a long time, so I guess
They're
give and
mainly
take.
there to hold anyway.
Mm.
You know, they're not a killing thing. They're just they're like shoot at us rather than something more expensive. But they're
Yeah.
relatively cheap, given the amount of armor they have and the fact they've got a cavalry an anti-cavalry bonus.
Yeah, and it is a very big anti-cavalry bonus.
Yes,
Um,
and if you are going to stay still and you can form Schiltrum, then you know.
yeah, definitely. I think
They'll just
your mailed knights did not get nearly enough kills.
no.
They have a lot of potential because they're good at charging and they're quite good at holding in melee, extended time periods. So maybe cycle charging with them would have I don't know. There's a lot of things that happened in this battle that could have swayed it either way. And I think I got quite lucky in quite a few places as well. So that was a very close battle. So a good game.
Yeah.
So that concludes the England faction focus spotlight or whatever it's called, and I think the next one's France. Just go through the list as it is. Yeah,
Yep.
See you next time.